TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel adopts the hostage release deal with Hamas, which is scheduled to take effect on Sunday, January 19th. Damascus praises Qatar for its commitment to launch a disinformation campaign against Israel over its presence in Syria, throughout Western countries at large, and the United States in particular. The IDF reaffirms its commitment to enforce the ceasefire in Lebanon. The Islamist Hamas terror organization capitulated to international pressures after its last-minute attempt to extort Israel for additional concessions. The Israeli cabinet met at 12 p.m. earlier today, and after it voted in favor of the hostage release deal, a subsequent vote was held by Jerusalem's entire government coalition, during which a majority reluctantly voted in favor of the deal. Consequently, as long as the Palestinian terror group Hamas upholds the deal's outline, a first group of hostages are expected to be released as early as Sunday afternoon. It's important to highlight that as part of the anticipated negotiations that are set to begin on the 16th day of the 42-day ceasefire of Phase 1, Israel will stand firm in its demand that Hamas relinquish control of the Gaza Strip. A senior Israeli official told TV7 that Jerusalem will not yield its unequivocal demand that Hamas will never again govern the Gaza Strip, a position that is supported by the incoming Trump team in Washington, to which relevant senior officials who are set to assume the most significant roles in Trump's administration have unequivocally testified to in their Senate hearings.
How can you coexist? How can any nation state on the planet coexist side by side with a group of savages like Hamas? They have to defend their national security and their national interest, as I pointed out in my opening statement.
It is important to know that in addition to the Trump administration's unequivocal support for Israel's position vis-à-vis the Islamist Hamas, it has also granted Jerusalem guarantees that if the Palestinian terror group were to breach the terms of the agreement, the United States will back Israel in relaunching its military offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Hamas is evidently delusional, stressing its call upon the United States, Qatar, and Egypt, in addition to other Arab and Islamic countries, to urgently start the process to reconstruct the heavily battered Gaza Strip.
As I said through speaking with the mediator countries and also with a number of Arab and Islamic countries, there is a commitment to rebuild Gaza and support our people. This is a subject that requires international effort. There is what we call a protocol specialized in this subject. We asked for it be implemented urgently.
Meanwhile, amid the adoption of a ceasefire for the Gaza Strip, the Iranian proxy Ansar Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi tribe in Yemen, announced that it would unilaterally join Hamas's ceasefire with Israel, evidently fearing the fast-approaching transition of power in the United States.
From the stage of implementing the agreement, starting next Sunday, we will also continue to follow and monitor the stages of implementing the agreement. At any stage where the Israeli enemy retreats from the agreement and returns to committing massacres, the siege, and aggression against the Gaza Strip, we will be immediately ready for direct military support and military operations alongside our Palestinian brothers.
Despite al-Houthi's rhetoric and perception that he can in fact dictate the terms and conditions of hostilities, the Iranian proxy Ansar Allah is not party to the ceasefire deal between Israel and the Islamist Hamas. Turning to Syria, where the de facto jihadist ruler of Damascus, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, also referred to as Ahmed al-Shara, reiterated his call on the United Nations to seize control of the demilitarized zone along the 1974 armistice line between Syria and Israel. During a joint press conference with visiting Prime Minister of Qatar, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, Al-Julani revealed that Qatar has committed to launch a global anti-Israel disinformation campaign regarding Syria, along with a pressure campaign in the West at large and the United States in particular, on his jihadist regime's behalf.
تقدم إسرائيل كان المنطقة
Israel's advance in the region was due to the presence of Iranian militias and Hezbollah. After the liberation of Damascus, I believe that Iranian militias and Hezbollah have no presence at all. There are pretexts that Israel is using today to advance into the Syrian regions, into the buffer zone. From the first moments, we spoke with all the international parties that Syria is committed to the 1974 agreement and is ready to receive international forces and bring them into the region, as well as work to protect them and return things to what they were before the Israeli advance. Qatar also has a fundamental role in shaping this opinion against the Israeli advance on Syria, and it will also play an active role in the coming days to form this pressure also through cooperation with some Western and American countries and countries in the region as well. Everyone agrees on the mistake of the Israeli advance on the region and the necessity of returning to what it was before its latest advance.
Well, Turkish forces are occupying large swaths of land in northern Syria, claiming national security interests as the root cause for its occupation. Its ally Qatar, which is keen on making major investments with Turkish construction companies to rebuild Syria, has dubbed Israel's occupation of a small strip of land along its border as condemnable. Moreover, it also called on Europeans and the United States to lift sanctions on Damascus without further delay, despite the Damascus leadership refusing to accept any demands for the inclusion of minorities, in addition to its unyielding actions that are seemingly paving the path for the consolidation of a Salafist regime in Damascus, backed by Ankara and Doha.
Of course, the situation in Syria, the humanitarian situation, requires the concerted efforts of the international community and the continued provision of support. It is also necessary to consider lifting the sanctions imposed on Syria as quickly as possible, given their negative effects on the growth of this support by countries. I would also like to stress in this context that the Israeli occupation seizure of the buffer zones is a reckless and condemnable act, and it must withdraw immediately.
Turning to Lebanon, where French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Beirut this morning for a first state visit since the ceasefire between Israel and the Iranian proxy Hezbollah has taken effect, and since the former commander of the Lebanese armed forces, General Joseph Aoun, was elected Lebanon's new president, and the president of the International Court of Justice, namely Judge Nawaf Salam, who presided over the South African case against Israel, has been designated as Lebanon's new prime minister.
First, we will support your goal for a sovereign Lebanon and a state who has the authority to exercise this sovereignty everywhere in its territory. I believe this is the first goal that you are promoting, and it is essential. This is a precondition for keeping Lebanon away from interference and various aggressions at a time when the region is experiencing enormous shakeups. This is also a precondition for making the ceasefire concluded with Israel last. It may take a long time to talk about what our country needs now in politics, economy, security, and various fields, but today, in the name of my people and in my own name, I hope from you, Mr. President, only one thing, that you testify to the whole world that the confidence of the Lebanese in their country and state has returned, and that the world's confidence in Lebanon must return completely because the true, authentic Lebanon has returned. As for everything else, we, you and our friends in the world are capable of it.
Meanwhile, in Israel's northern front with Lebanon, the IDF continues to enforce the ceasefire amid hundreds of violations by the Iranian proxy Hezbollah.
When we look forward, in context with our operations versus Hezbollah, we are determined regarding a number of matters. The first relates to our determination to enforce the ceasefire, and we, including today, yesterday, and 2 days ago, continually enforce it. Since the beginning to the agreement, we have eliminated more than 49 Hezbollah operatives. We are determined to do this, so long as we are in the field, to conduct additional searches, and to continue deepening our success, so that the facts on the ground are preserved. We are responsible for the security in the sector. We are responsible that there won't be any terror infrastructure, the accumulation of weapons, or any operational activity by Hezbollah in the sector.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is important to know that TV7 Israel is a non-profit ministry with all of our productions exclusively reliant on monthly donations. Therefore, I would like to seize this opportunity to thank all of you who proactively support TV7 Israel. And note further, if you're blessed by the contents of our programs, we would like to encourage you to donate as well. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Lastly, I'd like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Hassan wishing you a Shabbat Shalom u'Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.